Imagine standing in a crowded retirement party, everyone clapping for my father's sacrifices, and then I rise, holding proof that he secretly drained my college fund to build a new life with his wife. My name is Anna Carter, and I'm just 25, still in college, but that night, I had to choose between silence and truth. Would you have exposed your own parent in front of friends, family, and colleagues? Tell me in the comments, what would you have done? I was supposed to be studying for finals when the alert pinged my phone. Low balance notice, the subject line read. I clicked anyway. My student account showed zeros where numbers used to live. The tuition line, empty. The housing deposit, empty. The savings bucket Dad had named Anna's college fund years ago. Grayed out, archived, as if it had never existed. For a minute, I just listened to the dorm, the heat in the radiator, laughter down the hall. The world went on in its ordinary way. Inside me, something very quiet snapped. When I was 9, Dad pointed at a blue binder and said, "Your college money is safe, kiddo, no matter what." He said it again when my acceptance letter came, then again the day I moved into this tiny room. I used to think the promise lived in that binder like a seed in a jar. It didn't need sunlight. It only needed faith. I pulled up the linked bank portal, the one Dad had asked me not to touch because it's just for me to manage. The screen blinked to recent activity. 3 withdrawals, each tagged family expense, each larger than the last, back to late summer. Notes were blunt. Cashier's checks, no invoices. Remaining balance, 0.0. The blue binder, digitized and gutted. Don't panic, I ordered myself. Evidence first, emotion later. I took screenshots, saved PDFs, forwarded the messages to a folder I named after. I copied account numbers onto a sticky note and slid it under my keyboard. My fingers shook anyway. In our family text thread, the last thing Dad had sent was a selfie from the high school gym, his colleagues holding a banner that said, "Congrats, Richard, 40 years of teaching." Aunt Grace and my brother David piled on hearts and claps. Dad wore the same careful smile he'd given me at every milestone. "Proud of you," he had typed. I stared at the word until the letters blurred. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe the money moved to a higher yield account, or a scholarship disbursement hadn't posted yet. I called the bank. After the hold music, a rep verified my identity and said the transfers were authorized by the primary account holder. The accounts were closed. She couldn't tell me where the checks went. "Privacy," she said. By the time I exhaled, another email arrived. Past due notice. I opened it with a kind of grim curiosity. Amount owed, the exact number that used to sit in the blue binder. Payment required within 10 days. A line at the bottom warned that failure to pay could result in registration holds or dismissal. The word dismissal hopped like a fish in my lungs. I closed my laptop gently, as if the machine were a child I didn't want to wake. The dorm smelled like detergent and burnt popcorn. Outside, snow scratched at the window screen. I pictured Dad in flannel at the farmhouse table, steam curling off his coffee, the promise between us cooling beside it. "It's safe, kiddo." He had said it like he was laying down rails I could ride into the future. I wanted to believe the track was still there, just buried. My phone buzzed again. A new message lit the lock screen, weird trow with party balloons. "Join us to celebrate Richard Carter's retirement," the invitation sang. Date, time, venue, the high school auditorium, dress code, semi-formal. Family remarks welcome. At the bottom, a note from Linda, my stepmother, in looping script. "We will be honoring the sacrifices Richard made for his children." I sat still. Evidence first, emotion later, I reminded myself. I slid the invitation into After and opened a fresh document. Title, What I Know. Underneath, I typed, "The fund is gone. The withdrawals match my tuition. The bank says, Dad, signed." Then I added, because I couldn't help it, "I am not crazy. I am not ungrateful. I am not unloving. I am just not safe." The cursor blinked like a metronome. In 10 days, the bill would come due. In 2 weeks, the town would clap for my father. Somewhere between those dates, I would have to choose what kind of daughter I was going to be. The one who swallowed the story whole, or the one who stood up and named it out loud. The night at David's place smelled like rosemary chicken and new hardwood. Edison bulbs glowed over the dining room, making everything look warmer than it felt. I arrived with a store pie and the careful smile I use when I am not sure where the ground is. Dad sat at the table, shoulders set, napkin folded into a square he kept smoothing with his thumb. Linda poured wine as if she owned the air. "Look who made it," she said, light and bright. "College life must be busy. You hardly have time to learn the basics. Cooking, budgeting." The last word landed like a pebble in a glass. "Anna's in finals," David said too quickly. "We're glad you're here." I slipped my phone into my bag and took the seat across from Dad. He would not meet my eyes. The invitation to his retirement party lay half hidden under the salt shaker. The gold letters catching light. We filled plates. Talk circled the town, the weather, the school's new principal. Linda was gentle until she was not. "Tuition is out of hand," she said, tapping a headline on her tablet. "Young people expect the world to pay for them. When I was 20, I worked double shifts and learned not to overreach." Nora tried to redirect. "Anna tutors first years. She keeps the lab open late." "It covers books," I said, keeping my voice even. I cut a piece of chicken and chewed until my jaw hurt. Evidence first, emotion later. Tonight was reconnaissance. Linda tilted her glass and considered me like a case study. "I suppose your father never told you how much he has given up. All those extras over the years, sports fees, summer programs, the car you drive, college funds do not refill themselves." Her smile held. Dad's fork scraped his plate. He still would not look at me. The radiator ticked. "Money comes and goes," David said, trying for a laugh that did not arrive. Nora squeezed his knee. His eyes slid toward mine and away again. He knew something. Or he knew the shape of my suspicion and did not want the heat. Linda folded her napkin with precise little motions. "Families survive on trust. And on gratitude. Sometimes children do not see the weight a parent carries. Your father has carried quite a lot." "I am grateful," I said. It felt true and also like walking on a line over water. I am also trying to understand where the line is between sacrifice and secrecy. The bulbs hummed. A pot lid rattled and settled. Dad cleared his throat. "Let's eat," he said, as if that could close the door we all felt opening. Linda did not let it close. "Since we are among family," she said, "it may be wise for Anna to learn to take care of herself. Be practical. Take fewer credits. Consider leave until finances stabilize." She sipped. "Your father cannot do everything." The room narrowed. I pictured withdrawals, zeros, the email with the balance like an empty tray. "I have taken care of myself," I said. "I just need clarity." "Clarity is not always kind," Linda replied. Then lighter, "But we will have a joyous evening at the ceremony. You will say a few words. Anna, you above all should celebrate what your father has given. What he has taken, I did not say." I wiped a dot of gravy from my plate and counted my breaths. 1, 2, evidence first, emotion later. Conversation drifted to seating charts and music. Dad relaxed by degrees. Every so often his gaze brushed my face and fled. I wondered if he was ashamed or just tired. When dessert came, Linda lifted her glass. "To Richard," she said. "To 40 years of service. To a retirement bought with love and..." Her eyes slid to me. "With sacrifice." More than his daughter knows. The toast thudded into me. I made myself smile, a small thing that tasted metallic. "To Dad," I said, and let the wine lie on my tongue without swallowing. Across the table, David's expression softened and broke. He stared at the candle stub, then glanced up at me, helpless, apologetic. He shook his head the tiniest bit. I did not know if he was telling me not to fight, or telling me he could not fight either. I drove to the farm with the past due notice folded like a blade in my pocket. Gravel popped under my tires. Dad's truck sat crooked by the porch. I climbed the steps, steadying my breath. He was in the kitchen, hunched over the mail. Linda rinsed cups at the sink, bracelets chiming. "Dad," I said, laying the printouts on the table, "I need to understand where my college fund went." He glanced at the pages as if they were flyers. "Money moves around, Anna. It's complicated." "It's not complicated," I said. 3 cashier's checks in 6 weeks. The bank says you signed them. The tuition office says I'm past due." Linda turned, hands still damp. "Your father's been under strain. The furnace died. The roof needed patching. We had to cover family obligations. Investments in the home help everyone." I slid the notice toward him. "This isn't a draft, it's a bill. If I don't pay in 10 days, I lose my place." Dad took off his glasses and rubbed his nose. "We'll figure it out," he said. "After the ceremony, this week is not the time." "It is exactly the time," I said. "You told me for years the fund was safe." Linda gave a thin laugh. "Safe doesn't mean sacred. Your father has supported you your whole life. Families share burdens. Sometimes grown children take a semester off and work." Heat climbed my throat. I pressed my palms flat on the table. "I already work. I tutor. I pull extra shifts. I can do hard things. I can't pay a semester out of air because someone closed an account without telling me." Dad stood, chair legs scraping. "Watch your tone." "My tone?" I lowered it. "Fine. Tell me the truth. Did you spend the money?" Linda slipped between us. "Your father moved the money into the family. Appliances, repairs, medical bills, groceries when prices doubled. Those checks say family expense for a reason." "They also say cashier's check," I said. "Those don't buy shingles and soup. Where did they go?" Color rose in Dad's cheeks. He put his glasses back on and jabbed a finger at the papers. "That account had my name on it." "And mine," I said. "It was created for tuition. You named it after me." "For tax purposes," Linda cut in. "You don't understand how these things work." "I understand a promise," I said. "I understand a signature." Silence pooled. Outside, wind pushed at the maple. The clock ticked. Dad's hand came down flat on the table. The cups jumped. "You live in a bubble at that college," he said. "Who kept you in cleats and lessons? Who paid when your scholarship didn't cover meals?" "Me." "I know what you did for me," I said. "But this is different. You didn't ask. You didn't tell me. You took it." His chair skidded back. He seemed taller than the room. "That money is mine!" he snapped, the words hitting like thrown nails. "I raised you for 18 years!" The sentence split the air. I stared at him as if a stranger had stepped into my father's clothes. "So the promise was a loan with interest," I said softly. "And the bill came due when I wasn't looking." Linda reached for his arm. "Richard, sit down." He shook her off and looked past me toward the fields. "I've done all I can," he said, suddenly tired. "I'm tired of being accused." "No one is accusing you of loving me less," I said, feeling the heat turn cold. "I'm telling you what happened to money with my name on it." Linda's mouth tightened. "Enough. Your father needs calm before his retirement celebration. If you insist on making scenes, reconsider attending." I gathered the papers, aligning the corners. "I won't make a scene," I said. "I'll tell the truth calmly, at the right time." Dad finally met my eyes. Something, shame or a promise, flickered and vanished. "Do what you want," he said. I slid the notice into my pocket and headed for the door. The porch boards creaked. I made it to the gravel before the first tear hit my mouth, tasting like metal. I walked to the car with my vision stinging and the cold biting clean through. Behind me, the screen door side shut, as if the house were relieved I was gone. Aunt Grace's living room smelled like lemon oil and old books. Afternoon sun pooled on her crocheted throw, turning the yarn into gold. She didn't waste time with small talk. She set a tin of shortbread on the coffee table, then carried in a shoebox with both hands, as if it were a newborn. "I've kept this since your grandmother's day," she said, sitting close enough that our knees touched. "Your father used to bring me anything too important to misplace." She lifted the lid and drew out a blue vinyl passbook, the kind banks don't hand out anymore. The corners were soft, the gold lettering faint but still readable. My throat tightened. I heard again the slam of my father's palm on the kitchen table, the words that had split the room. That money is mine. I raised you for 18 years. Grace opened the passbook and flattened it with her palm. Read the name. Printed in neat black type across the inside cover, Harris Family College Fund, custodian, Richard Harris, beneficiary, Anna Carter. Below that sat the account number and the bank's branch stamp. Grace's finger traced the first deposit, made the summer after my 10th birthday. 200 here, 50 there, a tax refund, my grandmother's Christmas check, my dad's bonus from the plant. Row after row, year after year, it felt like watching a family build a house one brick at a time. Keep going, Grace said. My eyes slid down the columns. Around senior year of high school, the deposits got bigger. Scholarship matches, community gifts, a small insurance payout after Grandpa passed. Then the rhythm broke. A gap. Then 3 withdrawals in red ink. Cashier's checks issued, same branch, same teller initials, amounts that lined up too neatly with the holes in my tuition statement. The balance after the third one, 0.00. For a second, the numbers doubled on the page. I blinked hard. He told me the fund was safe, I said. He said it was my runway. Grace reached for my hand. Her skin was cool and dry. A promise is still a promise, even if someone decides they are tired of keeping it. I took pictures with my phone, each page square in the frame, the stamp clear. I made a slow video, saying the date out loud and reading the account name, just like I had learned to do when documenting lab results. Evidence first, emotion later. Grace watched me work, eyes kind. You were always the careful one, she said. Even as a little girl, you labeled your crayon boxes. I almost laughed. It's easier to name colors than to name what this is. She poured tea and let the silence sit until my breath found a steadier rhythm. I want to say something that might not feel good, she said. Your father is a proud man. Pride can turn into strange math. He will tell himself he earned this money twice over. Once when he made it and again when he fed you. That math doesn't make it right. I traced the last deposit with my thumb. If I confront him with this, he'll dig in. Likely, Grace said. He'll say you're ungrateful. He might say Linda needed something urgent. He'll make it sound like an air mask on a plane. She tilted her head. Do you want to win an argument today, or do you want the truth to land where everyone has to see it? I thought of the invitation tucked in my bag, the embossed gold letters for the retirement party that was supposed to be about service and sacrifice. I thought of Linda's toast at dinner, of the careful way she delivered the word sacrifice like a jewel. Grace set down her cup. Sometimes the only antidote to a story told in rooms you're not in is to tell the whole story in a room you choose. Not a tantrum, not a scene. Just the facts, lined up like fence posts. I don't want to humiliate him, I said. I want him to stop pretending. That's a line you can keep, she said. You can say, I love you. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to correct the record and protect my future. She tapped the passbook. And you can do it without raising your voice. I closed the passbook gently and slid it into a clear sleeve from the shoebox. Will you be there? I asked. At the party? I wouldn't miss it, she said. I'll sit where you can see me. We spent the next hour gathering adjacent proof. The card Grandma had mailed with a $100 bill and a line for Anna's college, her handwriting looping, a note from Dad to Grace a decade ago. Can you take this down to the bank? I'm working late. 2 old bank statements with balances that match the passbook. I photographed each one. I emailed PDFs to myself and to a new account with a nonsense name. I labeled the folder, Tuition, Chain of Custody. As dusk pooled against the curtains, Grace returned the empty shoebox to the closet and came back with a small envelope. For when your voice shakes, she said, placing it in my palm. Inside was an index card with a short script in her tidy block letters. Name the account. Name the promise. Name the withdrawals. Name your boundary. Then stop. My eyes stung. Thank you, I said. She squeezed my shoulder. Save the truth for the day it will do the most good. I nodded. In my head, the scene assembled itself like a careful procedure. Microphone, lights, Dad in his suit, Linda's smile, co-workers in their best jackets, the slideshow of a career. I saw my place in it now, not as an interruption, but as a correction, a turning of a page to the line everyone had skipped. On my way out, the evening had the clean cold of January. I tucked the passbook in my bag between the past due notice and my student ID. My phone buzzed. A reminder for Saturday 6 p.m. Community Center, retirement celebration for Richard Harris. The day, I realized, was already on the calendar. David's Cafe sat on the corner of Main Street, a narrow brick building with a hand-painted sign that looked older than both of us. The booths were half empty on a weekday afternoon, the espresso machine hissing like a restless animal. I slid into the booth across from him, my bag heavy with the pass book tucked inside. He wouldn't meet my eyes at first, fiddling with a packet of sugar until it tore in a thin, white spill across the table. Anna, he started, voice low, there's something I should have said a long time ago. His shoulders sagged under a weight I recognized, the kind that builds when you've watched something wrong happen and chosen silence instead. I sat still, keeping my hands folded on the table. You heard something. David's throat worked before he nodded. Last spring, I came by the house unannounced. Dad was in the den with Linda. They didn't see me in the hall. I heard them talking about the college fund. He said it was time to reallocate family resources. Linda told him the down payment for their new house wouldn't wait. And then his voice cracked. Then they laughed, like it was clever. My stomach clenched. The words weren't a surprise, but hearing them aloud in my brother's halting voice made them feel heavier. So it's true, I said. The fund was emptied for their mortgage. David pressed both palms flat to the table as if bracing for impact. I wanted to protect you from it. I kept telling myself maybe Dad would replace the money before tuition came due, but when I saw you breaking down over that notice, he shook his head. I can't keep pretending. I leaned in, keeping my voice even. I have proof. Aunt Grace saved the passbook. Every deposit. Every withdrawal. It's not just my word anymore. He glanced around the cafe, then dropped his tone lower. If you take this public, Anna, it'll tear everything open. You know how this town talks. But he finally met my eyes. I'll stand with you. If you have the courage to call him out, I'll be there. The words landed with a dull thud inside me, part relief, part ache. For so long, I had felt alone against Dad and Linda's wall of authority. Now, at least, one voice tilted toward my side. You mean it? I asked. I do. His jaw tightened. I can't watch Linda rewrite history anymore. She acts like she built everything when she was just there at the right time. Dad lets her run the narrative. But I know the truth. And now, you have the documents to back it up. The cafe door chimed as a couple walked in, bringing a gust of cold air. David lowered his gaze again, stirring a coffee he hadn't touched. But be smart. Don't explode at dinner or at the house. Choose your moment. My phone buzzed against the tabletop. I flipped it over, the screen lighting with a message from the Community Center events board. Reminder. Retirement celebration for Richard Harris. Underneath, in bold, special program featuring highlights of family achievements. I stared at the words until they blurred. A celebration, polished slides, applause. A stage where Dad would smile at colleagues and Linda would beam in sequins. A place where he would crown himself the architect of a family's future, and I, the daughter whose future he cashed out, was supposed to clap along. David followed my eyes to the message. He let out a long breath. He's planning to make a show of it. You know what that means. I slipped the phone back into my bag beside the passbook. It means the room will finally be full enough that the truth can't be ignored. David gave a sharp nod, resolve flickering behind his caution. Then we do it together. I didn't say yes or no. I just reached for my cup, the bitter coffee coating my tongue like iron. Somewhere in the clatter of dishes and the hum of conversation, I heard the clock tick toward a night that would either fracture us beyond repair or force the story into the open. The invitation in my bag felt heavier than stone. The party wasn't just a celebration anymore. It was the stage for the reckoning I'd been building toward since the day the balance read 0. The winter sun sat low as I crossed the lot of the high school where Dad taught for 25 years. In the office, a faded staff photo showed Dad in the center. Beside him, a bespectacled teacher half raised a hand. Mr. Thomas Harris. That was who I had come to see. He met me in the empty faculty lounge. "Anna Carter," he said, shaking my hand. "Richard's girl." "Yes," I said. "Junior year." He studied me, then sat. "Your father's retirement party is coming." "I'll be there." I steadied my breath. "Mr. Harris, did my dad ever talk about my college fund?" He laced his fingers on the table. "He did. A short chat, but I remember. Last spring, he stopped by after lunch, grinning. He said, 'Tom, it's handled. I freed up the money tied to Anna's account. Linda and I can finally move on that place out on Mill Creek.'" David's confession about the house echoed in my head. He used that phrase, "freed up the money." He did. Said keeping it in a passbook made no sense, and that you were resourceful enough to figure out loans like everybody else. I asked if you knew. He said you'd be grateful when you saw the house. I told him a child's college fund isn't a slush pile. He shrugged. I opened my notes app. "Would you be willing to put that in writing, or repeat it if asked?" He nodded after a beat. "This town loves your father. I love my integrity more. I'll stand by what I heard." He scribbled his number on a napkin and slid it to me. "I keep a paper planner. I can confirm the date." Outside, students clattered past. I pictured Aunt Grace's passbook, deposits under my name, then the blank space where the numbers stopped. Now I had David's admission and an outside witness. The pattern sharpened. "Thank you," I said. "I taught with Richard for years," he said, rising. "He isn't cruel, Anna. He's a man who convinces himself the end justifies the means, especially when someone nods along." He didn't have to say Linda's name. We stepped into the hall. The late bell rang. I pushed through the doors into the winter light and stopped. Linda stood on the steps, a faux fur collar framing a bright, hard smile. She held a to-go cup in one hand and her phone in the other, camera already lifted. The faux shutter clicked twice. "Well," she said, tone sweet. "Fancy meeting you here. Networking?" Her eyes slid past me to the lounge window where Mr. Harris hovered. "Tom," she called. "Still volunteering?" "Good afternoon, Linda," he answered. She turned the smile back on me. "Appearances matter, Anna. It would be a shame if people misunderstood your little visits. Your father is very tired. Big week ahead. Let's not give him a scene he can't handle." I put my hands in my coat pockets so she wouldn't see them shake. "I came for information." "Information," she repeated. "Here's some. Grown-ups handle assets, children go to class." She stepped closer, voice low. "Curiosity bites." Behind me, Mr. Harris cleared his throat. "Richard bragged about that down payment, Linda. Some of us remember." Her eyes flashed, then the lacquered smile returned. "Memories are fickle, Tom." She brushed past me, perfume loud as a warning. "See you at the celebration, Anna," she sang. "Wear something cheerful. No one likes a sulking daughter." She clacked away across the steps. The air seemed to vibrate in her wake. I remembered the zeros on the account and Dad's voice claiming the money as his. The anger that had been hot felt cooler now, like a blade being honed. "You all right?" Mr. Harris asked. "I am." I looked at the napkin in my fist. A name, a number, a date I could cite. Outside the gym, the lamps flicked on, though the day hadn't ended. For the first time since the balance showed 0, I had a witness beyond our porch, and Linda had seen me take it. The clock to my father's retirement party kept ticking. Now I knew what I would carry into that room. I would not be quiet. The warning landed at 7:02 a.m., just as I laced my boots. "Don't ruin your father's big day," Linda wrote. "He deserves peace." I stared at the screen until the bubbles died. Peace, in Linda's mouth, always meant silence. Saturday was market day at the old rail depot. Stalls of winter greens, jars of honey, kids selling wood-burned signs. I went because ordinary errands make good cover. If Linda was watching, she'd see me buying coffee, not guarding a trail of evidence. Mr. Harris's recollection, Aunt Grace's copies, my tuition notice folded like a bruise. I was paying the vendor when Linda appeared, scarf tucked like a ribboned blade. "Anna," she said lightly, as if the text belonged to another woman. "Walk with me." We moved past produce. "It's a shame," she murmured, "to drag private family matters into public spaces." "Your father hates scenes." "My father hates debt," I said. "He solved mine." Her eyes cooled, then smoothed. "Richard did what he had to do for our future. It was an investment." She stopped at a vacant stall and drew a folded sheet from her purse. "Since you insist on doubting me," she said, "here." The heading read, "Investment Receipt." The bank's name was correct. The branch address was not. Our branch moved in 2018. A faint coffee ring smeared the watermark. At the bottom, my father's signature looped toward the margin. The tail of the R flattened as if a steadying hand had pressed. "May I?" I asked. "Look your fill," she said brightly for nearby ears. Held to the light, the fonts didn't match. The date switched from slashes to hyphens. The account number broke our usual grouping. I photographed it twice, steady and square. "Thank you," I said. "Proof that money moved." "Proof that your father approved," she corrected, reclaiming the sheet. "Practice gratitude. You are not a child." "Then stop talking to me like one." She smiled without warmth. "One more thing. Mr. Harris is old. Dragging him into gossip would be cruel." "He offered," I said. "Truth hates being alone." She produced a second page, a household expenses summary swollen with totals, groceries, utilities, repairs, smoke arranged in columns. "You're rehearsing," I said. "I'm preparing," she replied. "There's a difference." Normal life hummed. A dog shook, tags chimed, someone laughed near the apples. I slid my phone into my coat, feeling its weight against Grace's photocopies. One receipt can lie. 3 angles make a shape no one can ignore. Linda leaned close. "Don't make yourself pitiable. Smile, clap, and your father will remember you kindly." "I'll let him remember me accurately." At the end of the stalls, she tucked the papers away and zipped her purse with a decisive sound. 7 days, she said. "I expect your best dress." She crossed to the lot. I opened my camera roll. Misaligned text, wrong address, compromised signature. I saved the photos to the cloud and an encrypted folder, emailed copies to myself and to a new address Aunt Grace and I created this morning. Then I stepped into the bank on Main. Ms. Patel, at the counter, slid me a fraud form. "I can't discuss your father's account," she said, "but authentic receipts have microprint in the watermark." She tapped a sample. Mine didn't. "Noted," I said. Chain of custody begins with small clean steps. Outside, the sky over the depot looked like blank paper. My phone buzzed. "David, you okay?" I typed. "Fine. Busy." Then, "Meet me later. I have something to show you." He answered, "Be careful. She's watching." She was. Linda sat in her car across the street, hands on the wheel, eyes forward, posture composed. She didn't wave. She didn't need to. The message had been delivered. Be quiet. Be grateful. I walked back through the market slowly, pocket buzzing with copies and dates. Each step counted down to Friday. Fear still lived in my chest, but now it had structure. The record would not be whatever she said it was. The record was what I could show, and I had begun. 1 week until the party. 1 week to keep the story from being rewritten. The house hummed with preparations, every surface polished, every corner scented with lemon polish and baked ham. Banners were strung over the entryway. "Happy retirement, Richard." In town, people said Michael Carter was a pillar, a man who sacrificed for his family. Tonight, Linda planned to make that legend permanent. She floated through the living room, pearls bright against her navy dress, giving orders with a hostess's smile. "Keep the candles lit. Anna, don't hover near the buffet. David," she touched his arm, "remember to speak from the heart. Praise your father's sacrifices. It's what people came to hear." I caught David's glance across the room. He looked away quickly, jaw clenched. My phone buzzed later with his text. "We'll do this together. Be ready." Her voice carried over the clatter of glassware. "Michael has given his very life for this family. All his earnings, all his energy. He poured it into us, and I intend to guard every penny he worked for. That is my duty as his wife." My chest tightened. I thought of the forged receipt, the forced signature. I thought of the student loan letter in my drawer, and then I remembered what Aunt Grace said. "Keep your evidence layered and safe." So beneath the neat dress I wore, a slim folder rested in my handbag. Photocopies of the old savings account in my name, transactions showing the money drained, Mr. Harris's signed statement recalling my father bragging about solving Anna's tuition fund for the house with Linda. While Linda praised herself for protecting Michael, I slipped away to the hallway mirror, practicing steady breaths. The folder was safe. The email backups were safer. Guests began to arrive, shaking hands, admiring the spread. The room filled with clinking glasses and polite laughter. Dad sat quietly in an armchair, his eyes heavy, his smile thin, already tired before the speeches. Linda leaned to David, her hand squeezing his shoulder like a stage cue. "When the moment comes, speak proudly of your father's sacrifice. Show them his legacy. Do not disappoint him." David's phone lit up in his palm. He glanced at me from across the room, hesitated, then pressed send. My phone buzzed. I read his words as my throat tightened. It's time. I closed my bag, squared my shoulders, and stepped toward the living room where the speeches would begin. The stage Linda built was about to collapse under the weight of truth. The auditorium smelled like floor wax and paper programs. Teachers and former students filled the folding chairs for Richard Carter's send-off. I stood at the aisle with David, my pulse tapping in time with the PA. In my bag, a photocopied passbook, a suspicious receipt, and Mr. Harris's signed statement. Every page also lived in the cloud. I'd promised myself truth, not spectacle. The principal opened with jokes about staff lounges and sheet cake. Laughter rolled across the room. Then, Linda glided to the podium in jewel blue. "Richard has given everything to this town," she said, eyes soft, voice tremoring just enough to sound tender. "He put his children first." Her smile found me. It stayed. My father followed, leaning on the rail while applause poured down. "I'm grateful," he began, practiced and modest. "Teaching is a long conversation." He thanked the district, the coaches, the lunch staff. "Family makes it possible." He looked at Linda. She touched her pearls. David shifted beside me. "Ready?" he whispered. I nodded. When the applause ebbed and chairs scraped, I rose before I could second-guess myself. "Excuse me," I said, stepping into the aisle. Heads turned. "I'm Anna Carter, Richard's daughter. I need to add one sentence to tonight's story." Linda's smile cooled. "Anna, not now," she sang, smoothing the air with her hand. "It has to be now." I climbed the steps to the spare microphone for student announcements. My bag rested on the lectern like an anchor. I unzipped it. Years ago, a college fund in my name was created. Tonight, I'm showing what happened to it. I held the passbook to the lights. Deposits under my name, steady balance, then sudden withdrawals. I set it down and opened the second sleeve. This receipt shows a withdrawal labeled reallocation with a signature that matches my father's, pressed hard, shaky. A rustle traveled the room. Private finances aren't for public display. Linda said, smile gone. This statement, I continued, is from Mr. Harris, Dad's former colleague. He recalls a conversation in which Dad said he'd taken care of Anna's tuition to make the down payment on the new house. Mr. Harris lifted his hand from the third row, confirming the signature with a nod. No one spoke. I turned to my father. I'm not here to shame you, Dad. I'm here to finish the conversation you started when you told me, again and again, your education is safe. It wasn't. I have loan notices. I have the emails. I have the dates. Words failed him first. His shoulders seemed to fold inward as if the jacket were suddenly 2 sizes too big. The microphone caught the small, ragged breath he drew. He stared at the projection, at his name, at the hard groove of a pen stroke that didn't look like his usual hand. Richard, Linda hissed, low and urgent, say something. She reached for his arm, but he didn't move. His silence spread across the stage like spilled ink. Aunt Grace stood. Let the girl finish, she said. I lowered the final sheet. I want reimbursement deposited into a university account only I can access. I want the record corrected in front of the people who believed this was a story about sacrifice. It can still be a story about responsibility. The principal shifted, unsure. David stepped forward. I heard them talk about using the fund, he said, voice carrying farther than he expected. I should have said something sooner. He faced me. I'm sorry. The room went still, emptied of polite chuckles. Somewhere in the back, a program dropped and skittered under a chair. Linda's seat screeched as she rose. This is slander, she snapped. We are leaving. She grabbed her clutch and strode down the side aisle, heels biting the waxed floor. I kept my eyes on my father, his hands that signed permission slips and graded essays, shook. He pressed his palm to the lectern and leaned toward the mic until his face filled the projector's glow. The auditorium, rows and rows, held its breath. My daughter, he said, voice gravel and ash. I was wrong. The next morning, the house felt newly quiet, as if the walls had exhaled while I slept. Sunlight sifted through the blinds in pale ladders. A kettle hummed. I stood barefoot in the kitchen, hands wrapped around a mug, letting the smell of coffee cut through the hangover of last night's auditorium. On the table, my folder lay open, photocopied passbook, the forged receipt, Mr. Harris's statement, David's text promising to back me up in writing. I did not need to look at it again to know where every sheet belonged. A car door thumped outside. When I opened the front door, Richard stood on the porch, hat in his hand, older than he'd looked a day ago. He did not try to step past me. Anna, he said, voice sanded down. May I come in for 5 minutes? I moved aside and pointed to the table. He noticed the folder, winced, and set an envelope in front of it. It's made out to your university bursar, he said. The first transfer is already scheduled. I called them when the sun came up. This is the confirmation number and a written statement acknowledging the source of funds. There will be more installments until the account matches what should have been there. He slid across a second envelope. And this is for your loans accrued since freshman year. Not as a gift, as repayment. Silence pressed at the windows. I pulled the papers free. Cashier's check, deposit receipt, an email printed from the bursar with the word posted in a neat block. My name, the account number, dates. For once, the numbers calmed me. Linda? I asked. She left before midnight, he said. Said I'd humiliated her. Maybe I did. Maybe she needed to hear the truth with everyone else. He swallowed. I do not blame her for what I chose. I let myself be talked into a story where urgency excused everything. It did not. We sat. He did not reach for my hand. He waited. I shut the folder, took a slow breath, and spoke the boundary I had rehearsed in my head ever since the first bank email arrived. Here is what I need, I said. Every payment goes directly to the university. No cash, no back-channel favors, no speeches about sacrifice. When you speak about me, you tell the truth, that you use the fund and you are restoring it. If anyone asks, we show these documents. If you slip, we stop talking until the record is corrected. And there is one more thing. I forgive you for last night when you looked at me and could not speak. I do not forgive the pattern that made last night possible. That part takes time, and only consistency can heal it. He nodded as if each sentence landed like a nail he needed to drive home. I accept all of that, he said. I'll write it down. I'll sign it. No more secrets. My phone buzzed with an email ping. The subject line read, "Tuition payment received." I tilted the screen toward him. He smiled without showing his teeth, the shy, private expression I remembered from elementary school awards nights. "Thank you for making me say this out loud," he said. "They teach teachers to control a room. No one teaches us how to face our children when we're wrong." Aunt Grace texted a single word, "Proud." David followed with a thumbs-up photo of the empty auditorium and the words, "I'm here if you need me." I replied to both, then stood and walked to the counter, poured a second mug, and set it in front of my father. He did not pick it up right away. He sat with his hands around the heat like a man warming himself after falling through ice. "Will you come to campus one day?" I asked, "and meet my advisor when the balance reads what it should have been?" "If that's part of the repair," he said. "Yes." "It is," I said, "because the story has to be true from now on." He rose, adjusted his hat, and looked once at the closed drawer in my desk. "I know what that means," he said. "I will earn my way back to it." At the door he paused. "Anna?" I met his eyes. "Thank you for not making cruelty your justice." Then he was gone, and the morning settled again. I labeled a new manila folder "Education Fund Restored." I tucked the confirmation, the check image, and my summary of terms inside, then placed the file in the top drawer and turned the small brass key until it clicked. On my desk, the spring course registration page waited, blue and white, ordinary and beautiful. I added the class I had deferred, hit submit, and watched the green check appear. Outside, a neighbor's dog barked once and went quiet. The coffee smelled warm and steady. I sat at my desk, pen poised over a fresh page, and let the quiet be real. The papers in the drawer did not accuse me, they simply rested. I breathed in, breathed out, and began to study. I slid the drawer shut, the papers resting there like they had never kept me awake night after night. A quiet peace settled in, like I'd finally put a period at the end of a long, messy sentence. I've come to see that being a good daughter doesn't mean blind obedience. You can love and respect your parents, but you still need boundaries, your own say over money and decisions, so you don't get taken advantage of. Justice might show up late, but if you've got proof and the courage to stand your ground, you can still claim what's fair. The smell of warm rice drifted from the kitchen, and birds outside hinted at a brighter day ahead. If this story speaks to you, hit like, share it, and drop a comment. Type 1 if you feel the same. Type 2 if you think there's something I could do better.